Hi, CACNA 1A families. This is the second video in the series that we are making to help you read and understand your genetic test report. This video will focus on why variants are important and how they can lead to disease. So one thing to remember is that variants are found in both the DNA and the protein. Remember that a variant is a permanent change in a gene, which is different from what is commonly found in the human population. And a protein is a product of that gene, which is a tool that cells use to physically do work. And any change in the gene is going to be directly linked to any change in that final 3D structure of a protein. And your genetic test report will often have the variant listed as both a DNA change and a protein change. So how do we go from a gene to a protein? Well, obviously our starting point is that gene in our DNA. And it actually gets transcribed or rewritten into a genetic intermediate called RNA or mRNA. And the mRNA is what contains that final set of instructions from the exons in the gene that the cell can then use to make that final protein product. So we know that the genetic information inside of our genes comes in the form of nucleotides, but there's actually more to it than that. So genes actually contain something called codons. And a codon is a series of 3 nucleotides that encode for or specifies an amino acid. And we'll talk about what an amino acid is in just a moment. But this picture here is showing you an mRNA sequence, which contains the final set of instructions to make a protein. And every 3 nucleotides is a codon. And furthermore, each of those codons corresponds to a specific amino acid. So what are amino acids? Well, these are small molecules that are the building blocks of proteins. We actually have 20 amino acids inside of our cells. Each one of them has a name, a 3-letter abbreviation, and a 1-letter abbreviation. So for example, we have alanine here, and its 3-letter abbreviation is ALA, and its 1-letter abbreviation is A. So your genetic test report will most likely use either a 3-letter abbreviation or a 1-letter abbreviation. And these codons are so important because they determine the order or the sequence of those amino acids. So we've got a strand or a sequence of mRNA here highlighted in red. And you can see all of the codons separated out. Highlighted in green are the corresponding amino acids. And the order of those amino acids determines the protein's final 3D structure. And a variant can very well change that overall protein structure. So we have our original strand of mRNA on the top. If we look at codon 5, GGU, that encodes for GLY or glycine. But a single nucleotide change can change all of that. So instead of GGU, which encodes for glycine, we now have GCU, which encodes for a completely different amino acid, ALA or alanine. So that simple G to C change now results in a very different looking protein from the original one. And structure is important because it determines the function of a protein or what it's supposed to do. So an original protein would have the correct 3D structure, 100% functionality, and the important cellular processes that this protein is responsible for can occur. However, that single variant can alter the overall structure, and this protein may now only be at 50% functionality. Those cellular processes that are supposed to happen are now disrupted or inhibited. So the bottom line here is that dysfunctional proteins can lead to disease. A variant in CACNA1A can disrupt the function of the calcium ion channel and lead to the symptoms that we see. So here we have our simplified calcium ion channel waiting to be opened in the neurons. And once the correct signals are sent, the calcium can now move into the cell, neurotransmitters are released, and the correct signals are sent to the body to do things like move, learn, or think. When that variant interrupts the signal to open up the channel, then calcium can no longer come into the neuron. And those correct signals to the body are no longer transmitted. And when this happens in parts of the brain that are important for controlling movement, for learning and memory or cognition, this is why we see things like ataxia, developmental delays, or even seizures. Thank you so much for watching this video. Up next is our last video in the series, where we will be deciphering the results of some sample genetic test reports.